You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Welcome into RBLR Lightning. My name is Chris. Where the Lightning have 4 points in the past 5 games, or actually we've gotten 5 points in the past 5 games. So that's really good sign coming into this week, man. This is some good news, and we've got another great show planned for you here tonight. And along with me is my main man, Jake. Jake, how you doing tonight? How you feeling after these past couple games?
Doing good, Chris. You know, the Lightning have been playing pretty well for the most part. They're starting to come back into their old selves. They got a nice little spot in the third in the wild card standing, so can't complain too much.
Yeah, and obviously we'll get into some news here with the whole Sergachev being suspended was one thing I wanted to bring up because I know you had a pretty good opinion on that, and we'll get to that here in a second, but. I think it was the right call, and I know a lot of people were upset, but it was definitely a cheap shot. It definitely wasn't necessary. There was no reason for that at that time in the game. This has been kind of Sergachev's problem. I don't know if it's just him being young and still learning the pros, but he makes a lot of dumb mistakes sometimes. And, we kind of talked about it in the offseason, how we were both thinking like, okay, Sergachev's going to have a bounce back year. So far, hasn't been that great, and obviously these kind of boneheaded mistakes just can't be made. I hope he learned his lesson, but definitely a cheap shot, and I definitely think it was a deserved 2-game suspension. So, Jake, I'll get your opinion here. How did you feel about this suspension for Sergachev?
Oh yeah, it was a deserved suspension. You can sit here and argue whether it should have been 1 game or 2 games or whatever, if it should have been more, but as we know, player safety is extremely inconsistent with everything they do. But I do believe it should have been a suspension. I know a lot of people were saying, it was kind of shoulder hit, he hit the shoulder first and then it was the head, but nonetheless, it's a bad hit. Even if he technically never did hit the head, it's a hit. He's going up high into that area. There's so many better plays that he could have made. And like you said, he hasn't been playing great this year. He's kind of struggled a little bit again. So I think even just the suspension from, take away the dirty part of the hit, like just him sitting out for 2 games, I think could benefit him because he's been making some big mistakes, as you mentioned. And hopefully while he's sitting these games, he can learn from this and come back as a better player and start to improve his game and get back to where we know he can be. So definitely was not a good hit. And I think it was almost a good thing for him to be suspended because he had been struggling and there was clearly some issues that he needs to work on. And hopefully when he comes back, he'll be ready to go at full force.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I kind of hope it's maybe a wake-up call for him, to kind of get him going. It's just the consistency from him. I expect it to be better at this point in his career. Obviously we traded Druin for him, and obviously I was fine with that trade. Druin had an attitude problem. That's fine. Let's get rid of that. And Sergachev was one of the better defenders, young defenders in the league. So I'm hoping that he'll put this behind him, and when he comes back, confident and ready to go for the rest of the season. Some other news we got, Bogosian was skating in a regular jersey for the second straight day, along with Kachuk. Obviously, that's some good news because you could always use, Bogo in there on defense to get some rotation in there between him and Foot. So, Jake, how are you? You got any information on this Bogo and Kachuk? How are you feeling about them coming back? Do you think it's going to be, good for the lineup? Do you think they're going to get, put into the lineup right away?
Well, obviously, anytime you can have depth, that's always a good thing. Having extra bodies there, that's always beneficial. Bogosian, I think, is going to be out, they said, for a couple of more games, but he's definitely close. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Schuster got called back up, so he's not quite ready just yet, I think. But he should be back soon, which is always good. I know Bogosian is really a big fan favorite with the Lightning fan base, but As for if they get back in right away, Bogosian he'll definitely probably jump in right away as he is kind of that sixth defender for the Bolts. I haven't seen anything from Foot or Schuster that jumps off and says, hey, we should actually be the sixth defender and not Bogosian. So I would expect him to get his shot right back in the lineup when he is healthy. But I'm sure the Lightning are also sitting there saying, we're not going to play him at 95%. Well, we're going to wait until he's 100% because Schuster and both Foot, even Clayson too, when he played in his game, I thought have played well. They haven't had any glaring mistakes. I mean, they've had a few, but it hasn't been too terrible to this point so far. So as for Kachuk, I don't know if he gets in the lineup right away. Him and Taylor Radish have both played well at times. Radish has been doing pretty good as of late. He recently got his first point. So I would expect him to get back in relatively soon once he's ready to go from an injury standpoint. But I could also see the Lightning just rolling with what they have right now because they've been playing really good as of late, especially on the offensive side of things. And sometimes you don't want to mess with that chemistry. But you do want to get Kachuk back in the lineup so he can also build that chemistry as well for the future.
Now, do you think someone like Schuster, who we've obviously been with the Lightning before and he's come back? A lot of people had a lot of bad things to say about Schuster when he was on the team a few years ago, but I think so far this year, I think he's filled in relatively well. Have you seen anything from Schuster that looks different? Do you think he's filled his role pretty well so far?
He's been better than I expected. I was never a big fan of Andre Schuster when he was with us. He's got a goal in these last couple of games, which is nice to see. I know fans were getting a kick out of them playing Oops, I Did It Again by Britney Spears when he scored the goal. I know it's always a fun little thing. But like I said, for defensemen, for me, a lot of the times, assuming they're a defensive defenseman, if you're not saying their name or noticing them a lot, then they're doing a good job because that means they're, not letting players get by them, blocking shots, whatever it may be. So usually when you're not noticing defensemen as much, that means they're doing a job because you tend to get noticed when a player makes you look silly and gets by you or you miss a clearing attempt or something to that extent. And I haven't noticed Schuster a ton. So I think he's been doing pretty decent. Like I said, he does have a goal as well, which is always good to see. So I've been impressed with Schuster. I think he's done well, and I think he's going to be really nice for the Lightning to be that, 7th, 8th D-man that can fill in the spots for when the Lightning do have an injury issue.
And I agree too, because you talked about how Bogosian coming back will be some depth, which is really what we need right now. And bringing a guy like Schuster back who knows, how our system is and how we play is always good to have. You don't expect crazy things from him, but as long as he's playing consistency on the ice, I think he has. I think he's played pretty well so far. So definitely glad Schuster's playing well, and hopefully he can keep that up. So as we move on here, we've had two games since we last talked. Obviously the Maple Leafs and the Senators. This Toronto game, this was a tough one to swallow, man. This was a really, all around. The refs were terrible. It was some dumb plays by the Lightning too, but we had so many opportunities and we just couldn't take advantage of it and get it done in this game. And I saw a lot of positive things in this game, and we had this game. We were 43 seconds away from a shutout and winning this game. And the Lightning, just for some reason at the end of games, we really seem to struggle the last 2-3 minutes of a game. If the team pulls a goalie, we should really struggle to get the puck out and get to that empty net goal. It happens here and there, but I see other teams around the league, they kind of just get it out and score that empty net goal. And I think the Lightning have to do a better job as far as, I think we struggled to clear the puck out of the zone there at the end of the game, which resulted in the game tying goal. And obviously dumb penalties at the end there did not help at all. Hedman overall had a rough game that game. So I'll ask you here, Jake, how did you feel about this Toronto game? I know you were excited to talk about this one. So let's get your opinion on this game.
Well, it's funny. I'll first mention you were talking about teams being able to score the empty net. I think I might be the issue there because it seems like every single game I watch, whether it's the Lightning or me betting on it, the teams are scoring within the last minute of the game, and it's driving me crazy. I don't know what the deal is with these games I watch, but yeah, you kind of hit it on the head. The Lightning, and even Cooper said this in his post game conference, they were the better team. They played very well. Andrei Vasilevsky played extremely well in this game against Toronto. This is the kind of game where the Lightning all owe Andrei Vasilevsky a six-pack after the game. I hope they went out to the bar and bought him some beers because he bailed them out multiple times. He made some outstanding saves. He had Toronto shut out for basically the entire game, and it wasn't until those last 40 seconds that the Lightning weren't able to hold on. And ultimately, a big part of that was Hedman not being able to clear the puck, which was an issue. And Toronto ends up getting that game-tying goal. And then they take a terrible penalty in overtime. That's the last time you want to take a penalty. And finally, Toronto's able to capitalize and win the game. So, it's, yes, the Lightning got a point out of this. It's funny, that's a term that comes up all the time. It's like, well, we got a point. But this one's a little more frustrating because the Lightning should have had too easy and Toronto shouldn't have even got a point themselves. But again, it is always good that you do get a point. At least they didn't blow the 2 goals in the final 40 seconds of this game and end up losing in regulation. Because at the end of the day, as long as you're picking up points, that's always good, especially in the standings. Because it doesn't matter how many games you win. It's all about, where you're sitting at points wise at the end of the regular season, if that makes sense. But the Lightning played very well in this game. It was really just those last 40 seconds that we kind of shot ourselves in our foot. But you're going to have those types of games. So it's a game you have to come back and bounce back from and really put your foot on the gas. And the Lightning, I felt, did that in their very next game.
Yeah, and if you look at, there's 2 stats in this game. If you look at it, the Lightning had 16 giveaways to Toronto's 13. Now, usually you're probably not going to win a game when you're giving the puck away more than the other team, but we hung in there all the way till the end, even turning the puck over, 16 times. So that says a lot that we were right there. We were knocking on the door, and that says a lot to Vasi, man. Vasi had 32 saves in this game. I think he looked really strong in net. I don't think the goals at the end were necessarily his fault. Like you talked about getting on a power play, going into overtime. It's a recipe for disaster. It really is. Those are tough to stop. So hats off to Vasi, for holding it down for this game for us. He was, that close to a shutout, which I always love to see for Vasi. And then another stat in this was, Toronto with the 15 takeaways to our 8. So, Toronto was taking the puck away. We sometimes the Lightning, they love these fast passes, and it results in a lot of turnovers in the neutral zone and in center ice. So I'll ask you here, Jake, did you see what did you see in this game that you really liked and you thought, okay, this is good sign? And then what did you see that, okay, maybe the Lightning still need to have a little bit of some growing pains on?
I think the easy answer is, the defense looked really good for the most part. Obviously, the last 40 seconds was an issue, but for a majority of this game, as mentioned, Andrei Vasilevsky was stellar in this whole game. The Lightning were able to somewhat keep the Toronto offense off the board for almost the whole game. I mean, Toronto had been hot coming into that game. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, they've all been playing relatively well, and the Lightning did a decent job of shutting them down. So that was really nice. But then on the offensive side of the things, the Lightning weren't able to capitalize on some of their chances and weren't able to get pucks in the back of the net to extend that 1-goal lead and potentially give them a chance at winning, even if they do give up that goal in the last 40 seconds. So it was nice that they got that first goal, but they weren't able to build on that. And, 1 goal isn't always going to cut it. It's obviously extremely hard to get a shutout in the National Hockey League these days. So I would have liked to seen them capitalize on their chances a little more. I know they had a lot more shorthanded chances that they haven't been able to score on. It's funny, Joseph, how many shorthanded chances has this guy had this season? And he just, for some reason, can't find the back of the net. It's coming eventually. It's going to happen. But this was just a frustrating game, and it's the type of game that you're like, all right, we lost that one. We should have been able to win it in regulation. We got the point. Let's move on and get ready for the next game.
And another good point, like you said, we got a point, which will take it. A point's a point in the NHL. We talk about it all the time. It's important come the end of the season. So to take it to overtime, obviously, yes, we would have loved to have the 2 points. We were right there, but this kind of stuff happens. So hopefully, the Lightning learned their lesson in this game. Don't stop playing. Play smarter when you're in your own end. Pay attention when you're clearing the puck out. Look up the ice and just don't make those fast passes that result in turnovers and can result in Toronto obviously scoring the game-winning goal on a dumb power play. So we'll move on from that game to the Senators game where Elliott, got his second start of the season, and I think Elliott looked better. It's against the Senators. It's not saying much, but it's a confidence booster when a guy can go out there and get a back a goal. He can go out there and get a win for us. Especially his first game for us was not a good showing. Everybody was disappointed and freaking out, but 24 saves on 27 shots. It's okay that we allowed 3 goals to Ottawa. We still came away with the win. We still got 2 points. Hedman got on the board this game. Palat had a great game, great goal. Sorelli with a great pass to Palat, which was great. Even Ruda got on the board. So shout out to Ruda for his first goal of the season, and Elliott, the backup, being in net. So I think overall, I think we did what we needed to do in this game. It was a little worrisome there in the beginning when we were kind of struggling to consistency to get something going against Ottawa team who just really struggles all around. So I'll ask you here, Jake, how did you feel about this Ottawa game, and how did you feel about Elliott's second start for the Bolts this season?
I really liked what Elliott was able to do in this game. I know a lot of people were jumping, on him already after that game against Buffalo, but I thought he played very well. He made a lot of good saves in this game. He had a little bit of a scare there where an Ottawa player fell on top of him. We thought he might get injured, but he got right back up and was ready to go, and he did his job. Listen, anytime you're a backup goaltender for the Tampa Bay Lightning, you're going to get compared to Andrei Vasilevsky, which is just not fair. It really isn't. But he did a good job on the penalty kill. They say the goaltender is the best penalty killer on your team, and the Senators went 0 for 4 in this, and they had a pretty decent power play coming into this game, and a lot of that is a credit to our penalty killing unit, like Bellemare and Joseph, who have been so good on the penalty kill. But he made a lot of good saves. Not all of them were just easy saves, and even though it is the Senators, sure, they're not as good of a team as some others. But like we say all the time, anybody can beat anybody. The Senators have 3 wins. It's the National Hockey League. They aren't like you're playing minor league teams every night. So it's a solid win for Elliott. I was happy with that. We haven't seen a ton of him in this season just because of our schedule has been. We've had so many days in between that we haven't really needed it too much. But as they talked about on the broadcast, there are going to be some days where we have a lot more games kind of crunched together, and we're going to need Elliott a lot more. So it's good to see him get some confidence, get a good game in, and he looked very good.
And, we secured the 2 points, which is the most important thing in this game, which is getting the win, man. Getting those 2 points, especially with a backup goalie in net. It's always big. Doesn't matter who you play. These are professional players, so a win's a win, and I'll take that. But another thing that concerned me with these 2 games was, once again, the power play was not really there again. It's still inconsistent. I was hoping that, obviously we've only had 2 games since we last talked, so it's not a lot of time, but I still would like to see a little more consistency on the power play. The Lightning right now, we're sitting 22nd in the league in the power play, and we're better than that. Even with Cooch missing, I think we can still find a way to get pucks in the back of the net, and I think we have to get this problem solved at some point. Sitting 22nd in the league, I think heading into the playoffs isn't going to get it done, because come playoff time, penalties aren't called as much. So come playoff time, when you get those power plays, those are crucial times when you need to be taking advantage of that and scoring those goals. So this power play has got to be more consistent. And we've talked about it every episode, and it still has yet to get to that point where I want to see it at. So Jake, how are you feeling about these power play the past 2 games? Have you seen anything that's bringing a ray of sunshine our way? Do you think we're going to continue to struggle, or what's going on?
Well, you make a great point when you talk about come playoff time, how typically penalties start to go down. There's less opportunity, so you need to capitalize on them. That's an excellent point. But I thought they looked decent on the power play against Ottawa. They were 1 for 2, only had two chances, and ended up getting one early from Victor Hedman. So they got a little bit better in that Ottawa game. But again, you bring up consistency, and that's going to be the big question for the Lightning. They're playing the Hurricanes tonight as of this recording. Carolina's a very good hockey team. We'll see how their power play performs tonight, but they've just got to get into a little bit of a groove and a flow and try to get something going. And I think it's the second unit that really needs to step up. Brian Engblom was talking about this on the broadcast as well. Andre Palat, who was huge for the Lightning when Stamkos was hurt during the playoffs, or when Kuch had when he was out for a little while as well last year. Palat really stepped up on that other side of the circle and was able to put on a wicked slap shot and kind of be that Steven Stamkos type of player for the Lightning on the power play. He hasn't really done that a ton this season. I don't know if that's just because the unit he's playing on, or if he just hasn't. He's kind of gotten a pass first mentality again, but he did start to shoot a little more in that game against Ottawa, and sure enough, they converted on one of those power play chances. But I think if they can get that second unit rolling, especially Andre Palat, and get him taking shots from the whatever circle he's standing in, I think that's where the Lightning can really start to benefit and improve this power play.
Another thing I saw in these games was, once again, the Lightning taking just dumb penalties when they're not necessary. And we've talked about this before too, and it's like, you can't take these dumb penalties that at the end of games and give teams opportunities, because that's when we seem to really give up these goals is end of games. Like I said, we got to find a way to close these games out better, be a little more smooth and consistent when we're in our own zone, and taking dumb penalties at the end of games has just got to stop. And it's something that we've talked about for years now. As far as the Lightning go, it's one of those things that they always do. But I guess we still find a way to win the cup somehow. But I feel like at some point that's going to catch up to us taking dumb penalties, especially come playoff time. So, Jake, do you think there's anything we can do to just stop these dumb penalties? Do you think it's on coaching, or do you think the players just really need to just play smarter hockey?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think a lot of that does come down to coaching. Again, like you said, it's been a problem for the Lightning for a while. So it's like, I don't know what to do at this point. I don't know what you got to do to stop it. But they definitely want to stop taking so many bad penalties, especially like the one against Toronto in overtime. Right. Who knows what happens if that doesn't happen? Sergachev had been a little bit of a problem when it came to penalties. He took a couple bad ones as well. So him being out for the last 2 games has kind of helped him a little bit. So hopefully when he comes back, the suspension helps him out with that as well. And he'll stop taking as many penalties as he has this year. But I think I want to say mostly on coaching. Listen, I'm not ripping John Cooper by any means. He's been fantastic for this franchise, and I hope he stays free. Yeah, fire Cooper. Get him out of here. But he's obviously been, one of the best coaching hires in the National Hockey League for a long time now. But he's definitely got to try and get these guys to buckle down and just play some smarter hockey, because it's still an issue for the Lightning, although it hasn't been as egregious, I think, in these last couple of games. But that's the other thing too, right? Even when they are taking less penalties, it seems they're taking them at the worst possible time.
Yes, and that's the key right there, is taking them at the worst possible time and putting yourself in a situation where you're going to have to force yourself to play from behind at the end of the game, which obviously we do not want to do. So as we move on here, at least we gained, we got our points from these 2 games, which is obviously the most important. We gained points in each game, and then obviously Ottawa, we got 2 points. So all in all, I think these past 2 games, I think we looked better. We should have beaten Toronto, and we beat Ottawa. So moving on to looking around the league here a little bit, we're sitting at third, man. We're sitting at 6-3-2, 14 points, 11 games into the season. So, I'm fine with that. I'm fine where we're at. We don't need to be in first. We just need to hover around these, first through fourth for the season and get into the playoffs, because we all know what we can do come playoff time. So, obviously, Panthers, man, sitting 10-1. Shout out to the Panthers, 10-1. We talked about how good they were going to be this season, and they're really showing out, even with their coaching issues they were having. All that stuff going on down there, and losing their coach to some stuff a couple years ago in Chicago. But that says a lot about them to be able to still, sit at 10-1, even losing a coach, which can be, emotional for teams. So shout out to the Panthers, man. They're, looking good this season. So. Jake, is there anything you see around the league that is surprising you? Do you feel content where the Lightning are sitting right now? Or are you happy with how we've looked these first 11 games so far?
Yeah, I'm not worried about where the Lightning are in the standings. As you mentioned, the Lightning have learned this the hard way. You don't need to be first in the division. You don't need to win every single regular season game. As long as you make the playoffs at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. And obviously, the Lightning got off to a little bit of a rough start at the beginning, but they're 6-2-2 in their last 10. Obviously, only played 11 games so far, so it's still very early. A quarter of the season would be about 21 games in, so 2021. I think it's 20 and a half. So call it what you want, but that's when you kind of get a better gauge on how teams are this year. But the Lightning are in a decent spot right now. Obviously, if they would have won that game in Toronto, they would have been in second place. But it's only down by 1 point, and Toronto has played 13 games. So that's the other thing too, right? You look at that. Tampa sitting in third in their division. They've played only 11 games. Most teams have played 12 or 13. So they are behind in the schedule. It's just because of the way it's been, and they'll fall behind more because they don't play again until Saturday as of this recording. So they've had some pretty big gaps, but they're looking good. As for other surprising teams, you mentioned Florida. I expect them to be good. They've got a bright future down there. It'll be exciting to see us continue to play them in that rivalry. Rivalry. I still cannot say that word. But those two teams going against each other has always been fun, and I'm excited to see them grow and get better at hockey. It's never fun sometimes when you just blow that team out of the water every single night like the Lightning used to, but it's going to be a tough matchup too in the playoffs if the Lightning end up facing them again when playoff time comes around. Montreal is maybe the other quote unquote surprising one, although they did lose Carey Price. Obviously he had to deal with some mental health issues, but Montreal, who made the Stanley Cup final last year, is last in the division, and they are way down there at the bottom of the league as well, with only 3 wins on the season. So it's not every day you see a team make the Stanley Cup finals and then just kind of go nowhere and not be able to win any games.
Yeah, and for all those Bolts fans that panic after we lose one game, we could be Chicago sitting at 2-9 or the Yotes sitting at 1-10. So that's when you guys need to start panicking, not when we lose one game and then win 2 or 3 in a row. So, these next 3 games coming up, man, we are playing our past 3 playoff opponents. We got the Hurricanes, Panthers, and the Islanders, who we all played in the playoffs last year. So this is going to be the gauntlet, as we record here on this Tuesday. We got Carolina tonight. We got the Panthers on Saturday. You got the Islanders on Monday. The Hurricanes have been, nothing but good this year. They're sitting at 9-1. And then we got the Panthers at 10-1. So these 2 games coming up are really going to be a test for the Lightning. And we usually play them both pretty well. But at the same time, we can't overlook these guys. They're not the same teams they were the past 3-4 seasons where, the Lightning would just go into these games and crush the Panthers or crush the Hurricanes. Now they're really competitive, and they're both really good teams. And I think we have a lot to prove in these 2 games. I think I should say 3 games. I'm not discounting the Islanders, but obviously the Hurricane and the Panthers, I think, are a lot better than the Islanders at this point in time. But I think these 2 games, going up against teams that only have 1 loss on the season right now it's huge. So the Lightning, need to go into these games confident. We need to play these games smart and play our style. Let's hope we can stay out of the box. Let's hope we can get the power play going, because I think the power play's really going to have to step up in these 3 games, because we're playing a lot of teams with good offenses and high scoring teams coming up. So Jake, how are you feeling, man? This is a tough run against 3 tough teams in the East. Obviously, it's a 3-game homestand, which is great for the Bolts. So Emily will be rocking. Are you looking forward to these games? How are you feeling about these next 3 games coming up?
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely excited. for these couple of games here. This is going to be kind of a measuring stick for the Bolts, to see really where they're at. They're playing, as you mentioned, tough opponents. Florida and Carolina are the number 1 and 2 teams in the league right now. They are playing some excellent hockey. So this will be a couple of big games and some big tests for the Lightning. You mentioned they're at home, which is always nice. It's obviously better to play at home. I know players prefer it, although the Lightning have actually, I think, played better on the road so far this season. But we will get a good look at where the Lightning are and if they've kind of improved from those first couple of early games in this season. They've got some tough opponents, and not only that are they tough opponents, but they're division opponents. Both Florida and Carolina. These are big games when it comes to the division. Carolina in the Metropolitan, but in the East, Florida in our own division. So these are games you don't want to try. You want to try to avoid overtime. You don't want to give them those free points when it comes to the standings. Again, I know I mentioned earlier, standings aren't everything. As long as you make the playoffs, that's the most important part. But in these division types of games, you want to try and keep as many points as you can to keep things close when it comes to the division standings. So, I think the Lightning will be able to come away with a couple of points here. They are a very good team, as we know. They're the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. They're very capable of winning these games, but they're not going to be easy by any means. So we will see what kind of Lightning team shows up for these next two. Hopefully they can come away with 6 points. That would be extremely nice, but it's not going to be easy.
No, but definitely some exciting hockey coming up, and I think we might need these extra days off going into this Florida game after Carolina, because it's probably going to be a pretty physical game with Carolina. So get these extra days off going to Florida. Hopefully win tonight, going to Florida with focused and ready to beat the Panthers. So I think that's about it for tonight's show. So I want to give a shout out to the listeners. Thanks for listening to us and giving us your time. If you could give us a follow, we are on all platforms of social media at RBLR Sports, Instagram, Facebook, Stitch, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. We're on it. We're posting content. We're trying to give you guys the best. Thanks for everyone listening and giving us a chance. We've come a long way. My final word here is, man, these next 3 games are tough. It's really going to give us a test. So, don't expect to win all 3 of these games. It's okay if we lose a game here and there. Don't think we need to chop off Cooper's head. The team will come around. We're sitting fine as far as standings go. So everybody just sit back, relax, and enjoy some Lightning hockey. So I'm going to give you the final word, Jake. Go ahead and take us home, man.
You nailed it. This is going to be some fun hockey to watch this week. It'll be some tough games, but if the Lightning come away with a majority of the points here, that'll show all the fans that they are looking good and they are fully back and ready to go for this season. So can't wait to watch it. Hopefully Steven Stamkos continues his big run because he's been so excellent. I've been loving watching him play right now. And my other big thing to watch out for this week is, let's see if Bellemare or Corey Perry can get their first goal. They've both been pretty close, and I've loved the way they've played for the Lightning this year. So here's to them picking up their first of the season for the Lightning. So it'll be fun watching, and I'm looking forward to it. Go Bolts!
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.